Hi, this is our Maytag Commercial washing machine, which is supposed to be a really awesome, sturdy thing, but it's really a pile of crap because it's the second time we've had problems with. And originally we fixed it with a aftermarket coupling, or it's a factory coupling, but it was a different style. It was the old school metal one instead of the plastic. But splines on the transmission shaft were so stripped out and rusty that I wasn't sure how long it would last. I got another 6 months out of it at the most. So yeah, that's where we're at with this guy. All right, we're pulling on the top of this drum, I guess. Bolt down inside of there, 7/16. It's already loose. So I'm holding it in there. All right, our dogs are still looking okay. And our bolt and the washer are going to stay in there. And here we go. We got that. I think this pulls off the top. And now we got that out. A little dirty. I'll clean it up again, I guess. And there's this tower looking guy. I think that just, unscrews. There's screws on the side here. But yeah, here they are. Alright, now my screws are out of the side. There's one hole on each side of this. This thing pops out of there, I think. Might need to pry it. So yeah, this guy's the hardest thing to get off. I had to take a screwdriver and pry on the outside of each one of these and relieve the tab and turn it at the same time. You do that and you can work it out. And that's what it looks like in there. These tabs here are pretty large. I don't know if they need to be that large, but they are. Alright, and then we got a bolt down here. And we can get the rest of this out of there. And so this is this turkey coming off once that nut's loose there, or the bolt. And you pull this whole thing out. And it's the spline rust that does these things in. And not so much this as it is down below. Underneath this hub here, this is a metal one we reinstalled after the plastic one took a crap. So yeah, here you go. I loosened up those screws. And I think you're not supposed to be able to do this, but the whole thing just pops right off. And look how nice those splines look, huh? They're so well. And the rust on the shaft is what leads it to the failure. And I think that cutaway, that groove that they make for the other plastic style hub, I think that's part of our issue, because that reduces the amount of engagement with the hub itself. Figure out how to take it apart so we can get the drum out. These are a T20 security Torx. Unscrew that. screw here. Okay, when you take them out, make sure you get all the pieces. This one had the washer pop out with it. And then, in order to pop the cover off, this pulls forward, and then it's supposed to tilt up here, like that. And then you gotta pull this plastic cover off the inside to get the drum out. And then we tip it. You could either probably tip it from the bottom and work on it that way, or I think I might pull the back off. You've got these tabs that are all bent now because I didn't take them out first. Those are a 1/4 inch head screw, or 6mm probably. There's 3 of them. One that holds this plate here on. You take that off, and then you got one there, one there. So we don't wreck anything else. I think these are T20s also. I think I got to take this off and disconnect the wires or something, because it all goes up into this box. So this is a multi-piece assembly. This black cover comes off, and then this guy comes off, and we got to figure out where all of these plugs go so we can relieve the stress on this cover. I bought this originally. I was told it was set up to be serviced from the front. I think it's much easier to take the back panel off personally. So this is the gear case down here. Somehow I got to get this whole thing out. So these come off of here and here. This hose goes down to this guy over here. If I can get over here, and this guy here, this pulls off. I think I gotta undo this nut or screw yet, and then pop this tab off here. Screw in that tab, and then I can have this cover sit on the ground behind it. So those are 5/16. It's a 5/16 head, and got that all loose, got it off, and it's laying down now. So that whole thing, there's 2 like Christmas trees that go in the bottom here. Those 2 holes, one goes underneath from the other side where that sharp bend is, and then the other one goes in the hole above it here. And then for these, I think to release that, you just got to pick up and turn that somehow. That's the back left, back right, front right, and front left. All right, I got this guy free. I took those hooks out of there and all the corners, and I was able to work that out. So looks like I might be able to make a little more room here once I move some of my tools and stuff. And then take a look at this, because pump and everything's on the bottom, and I need room to look at that. So maybe if I fish it back in there, I just worry about breaking the tub. All right, so harness, we've got guy here. Ooh. Locks on. That's going to have to get released. You've got the capacitor, which probably isn't good to touch, but hopefully it doesn't arc against anything. And I got another little Christmas tree thing down here, mounted to the gear case, and the motor connection. All right, and then this motor connection, it just snaps in there. So that little guy tilts, releases and tilts up. And there's a connector inside of here. Can probably undo. Looks like there's a lock on the top. Gotta pinch that. All right. So it looks like my harness, other than all the Christmas trees holding it, are free. And this bottom cover here has two 5/16 bolts that hold it. And I think that's it. It just clips onto the capacitor, it looks like. Yeah. Can't really get it to focus on those numbers either. That's the capacitor. Here's the motor. I think that's the only thing that's rated for, warranted for 10 years is the motor and like the tub inside one. Here is the belt. Looks a little bit stained. The clutch, I don't know how that's doing. I'm going to have to look at that in depth. And then I guess that's the shift motor there. So I got the belt off. So on this clutch, you take it off of there like that with a pulley. The belt just walks off. This is smooth. It looks like it's got grooves, but it's just an illusion from the belt where it rubs. And then this turd, I think in order to pull the clutch out, you got to be able to get this motor off. I can't tell if it's the green screws or if it's something else that holds it in there. Alright, so the clutches I already had off. Basically, you see where the marker marks were, that's where that was aligned. This whole thing just kind of rotates when you loosen it. And I don't have it rotated all the way in right now. But yeah, how it works is when that actuator pulls, it basically pulls the hub in so it makes contact. So I don't think there's anything wrong with this clutch. It looks to be intact. All of my pieces are together. There's no broken splines. And even drive doesn't seem that bad. Spring's okay. Spring just pops off of there. And the splines inside of that pulley look fine. All the gear teeth on the back of this look fine. It's just down to the gear case. I gotta get 10mm bolts out of there. My standard stuff isn't fitting those four there. So this is the gear case. It's quite a bit larger looking than it actually looks in pictures, but it's probably because it's got a big home, and it probably has a fair amount of work it does. So what I see here is inside turns independently of the outside. Outside, you can see how bad all these splines have gotten. Almost look curved, some of them. But yeah, they machined this slot right through where the stupid hub is supposed to sit, so it has even less surface area to grab. And I mean, this is barely, you can barely feel it with your fingernail. It's nowhere near as stout as these splines. Alright, so this is my new gear case for my Maytag Commercial washing machine. And this is the old one that came out of it. There is a difference already, I notice. The old one's got these on it. New one does not. Also, it seems like the galvanizing is different. This looks like a better quality galvanize. And the new one looks like it's just maybe coated. If that, might just be stamped metal. Another difference, if you look, is the holes here. These have a real fine taper where something locks in where the clutch goes. The new one doesn't look the same. Hopefully that's not a deal breaker. Right, trying to get this capacitor off. And in order to do it, you got to pull up on the back. There's directions, if you read them, to remove, lift, and rotate. So you got to pull up on the back and then turn it. And that's how it comes out. That is your capacitor. Installation is exactly the reverse, I guess. Put it in the hole with the cross crooked. And then you rotate back into place. And then it should go into that hole back there. Installing the clutch. Make sure you put your spring on first. And your cover with your ring goes that way. Don't think it matters what direction this goes. But you want your tab to be somewhere in that neighborhood when you're installing it. The cover that snaps over. And this little window in the side of that cover, he goes over that arm. Something like that. Gee, I bring that back to there. I don't know if you can see that. Then you turn the whole thing till it snaps in. It doesn't look like the difference between that and the ones in that one matter, because it looks like it's doing its job. Okay, I think next is our actuator. I don't remember which way that one goes. Something like that. Yeah. Okay, so there's a little wheel inside of here, right there. And these two little teeth or prongs kind of got to go around that. They straddle that. I think something like that. And then there's these two green screws. I'm assuming one goes right there. And one goes right there. And then you tighten them up. Come on, the lighting isn't great here. Try this. Alright, I believe the screws are tight now. Clutch seems like it's going to do its thing. I want to force it and wreck anything. And then on top of the clutch goes our pulley. And that goes so that the teeth mesh with these teeth. And there's a spline there too. It just pushes down. And then we tighten up the nut. And that's a 13mm / 1/2. Probably a 13. I gotta use two hands. And the final result. The final result is there. Got your pulley on, which I'm surprised it doesn't actually have the grooves in it. Just the flat pulley. The grooves are on top, or they're in the surface of the motor pulley. I'm just going to transfer my little arrows from this guy. I kind of drew an outline of where the actuator went. And I marked where my holes for my bolts were. By putting the transmission in, I get it into that hole and get it lined up inside, kind of centered on the spline. You can kind of see I marked on the outside marker just to make sure I got everything in the same location. Then you tighten these guys up. It's a 10mm head. do one-handed, but it's just plastic, so you don't want to go too nuts with it. This one back here. Probably use a drill if you were careful and didn't overspeed it. I just use a ratchet. And a stubby one at that, because you don't want to over tighten these. And once they're all tight, they shouldn't move at all. Alright. So that's what I got now. I think I can put the belt back on. And the belt, you loop around the bottom here, put it in the tracks or the grooves that it goes in. And then you want to loop it up around the top and just kind of walk it on. And if it comes out of the grooves, you gotta walk it back in. Oh boy, I don't like that. It's not where it belongs, in the grooves. There we go. They're all done. It should look like that. If you're like me and this popped closed while you're moving it around, you can pop that back open by prying out on this cover here with a screwdriver. Right here like this. Careful, it's plastic. Same on the other side, and then this pops down so you can get your harness back in there. Darn thing doesn't want to focus. Alright, that's what the inside should look like when you get it all in and through. That's your seal. And it's a good idea to clean any of the debris out of there. That's your pump or your water. Alright, so next will be your belt cover. And this, pretty obviously, goes here. Kind of centered on the two assemblies. It's hard to hold it and do this all at the same time, but there's a screw about that length, a 5/16 head, could be 8mm, about the same. That goes in the hole there, and then on the other side as well. Yeah, that cover is not going to look like it's tight, but it'll be tight. You'll get it. There seems like there's a gap, but there's a boss underneath that makes contact with the transmission case. Okay, putting the drum back in goes a little something like this. Gotta get your center hole over the shaft, like so. And that's about how much should be sticking out. I don't know if I can focus. Alright, and then once that's in, there's a cover that goes on. And I marked this guy front, and I marked a black mark on it to know kind of where it goes. Once finish snapping it down, and the other thing you got to make sure is all your rubber whatchamadingers. Basically, it's like a tether. Make sure they're all attached and in place on those posts all the way around. And there's several tabs. Just make sure they're all back in. All right, and that's how that should look. And then we can kind of tilt it into place. All right, so now we got this roughly kind of positioned back inside. And we'll start with our harness. I think it's this guy. Goes to the motor. Just like so. This Christmas tree goes in the hole. Cable management's important. You don't want that tangled on stuff. That way, which, yeah, so based on how it was sitting, the red goes on the outside, towards the outside of the transmission. And the harness looks like there's a hole there that can go into. Unless that goes in the other one. There's kind of two holes here. This guy can only go one way. That goes to the actuator for the shift. I don't know if you can see that in there. It's right there. But there is a tab on the top. And it's got to snap it into that hole. Very sharp, this edge here. And I don't know something else, but my fingers are bleeding. Anyway, be careful with that one. And then I've got this guy. Goes up to our pump here. Kind of shocked how small these wires are. Okay, and then this guy here, this plug, connects into this gray connector. And it's a 2-wire dealie. But there's a lock on the top because that wire's got to go out the bottom where the cover goes, like this. So that gets closed. That's all connected. And everything there's together. And then next, we got to find out where the rest of these go. This one goes in the bottom hole here again. And this one, if I remember right, kind of loops around. Goes into that top hole right there. And of course, it's going to shift on me. Now that everything's plugged back in, hopefully we're good. And I think I can stand the tub up. And maybe get these hooks back. These guys here. You just gotta, I'm gonna try and do the fronts first because they're hardest to get in. You just sort of take the rod, kind of work the rubber down. So you got a little bit of hook to work with. And then you gotta kind of wrestle it in place. See, this one got in there, but I had to align the rod. Sometimes it helps too if you take this guy out first, and then you work the rod through there, and then hook the other one in its place. I can't really demonstrate it without having two hands used. So the other one fell right out because I didn't have it hooked right. But basically, you use the springs to your advantage and you pull against them because they're stretchy, and you allow that to go up through, and you got to snap this on and rotate this. This little hook here and back has to go around the rod, and then you turn the rod so it's going this way. Then it's locked in. So when you're all done, it should look something like that. All of those rotated, and your drum roughly centered and able to move around. Back inside here, got all of this attached. It's off the ground like it should be. And what we want now is to get our hose right about there. Having to take that 5/16 screw out of there again, plug it in there, and then wrap that around and screw it in. Because it was fighting me too much to go through the hole again. And then we got to push this back through there, opposite of where the hose goes. So that harness is squared away. And then I can probably put the top back on and start doing the rest of that. Alright, before I get too carried away, I gotta put this plastic piece back in the bottom here. It just sort of snaps in there. Nothing too crazy. But you want to make sure that that is there before you forget about it later on. Alright, you want to carefully flop your top cover back down and get it knocked back in those holes so they're flush in front. And then we'll deal with the rest of that later. We just want to make sure in back we're not pinching this stuff. So this stuff we gotta snap back in place. This white clip that we popped out, it pushes in there first into the side, and then you snap it in that hole there. And looks like that one there might get pushed into the back panel somewhere. Doesn't it? I don't see a spot for it. Oh, you know, that hose might have to go on the other side of that rod. I might have to remove that yet and redo it. Alright, now that's how it's supposed to look. And then we got to get this black piece reattached to where this screw goes here. There we are. Okay. And we just got to tighten it up. Okay. That should be good. Back here, I was looking in my video earlier from taking it apart, and these aren't attached to anything. They just sort of sit there and hold it together. Like a loom-ish type deal. This one, there's a little mark on the paint here. You can barely see it. That's where this locks in. That one has a number 3 on it. I think they might both. I don't know. Or no, it's a letter B. They both have a letter B on them. And then the other one goes here, but I don't like the look of this. This is a corroded up mess. I'm gonna have to clean that up before I put it back together. You just grab some emery cloth. A little bit of sandpaper or something would be fine too. Even a scrubby, green scrubby pad. Just want to get that rust off of there as much as possible. Alright, well, that's looking a little better. And I'll pinch this closed just a hair more. Sometimes corrosion means there's like a weak connection. And yeah, it should look something like that. There's little teeth in there that grip. And then yeah, you can push it back up. And then this back cover goes on next. We've got to get that black tube for the drain through the hole here. Get it locked back in. Like, bottom goes in first. Like that. And then the rest pushes through. And there's a locking tab that holds it. There we go. I think we're good. Now we gotta line up these tabs in that plastic. One side. There we go. Okay, so this here has to sit down inside of the plastic. There's a tab here, right here on the metal that goes inside the plastic. This has got to overlap the plastic, this piece here. And then there's another tab on that side. Alright, so we got to put a screw in this guy. Keeping it tight. Flat tip. Alright. Goes in that hole. There. Alright, that'll keep that tight. Those are the ones that go on the side. So we got one at the bottom, one in the middle, one at the top. Okay. And kind of in the middle at the top. And one in the corner here. Top. This is the first time I've ever had the back off of this one. One in the middle, on the side here. It don't look like it's fitting very well. And one at the bottom. I'll save that one for last because there's another goofy cover that goes in between there. Sheet metal is thin and it does not like over tightening. Back at the top, we got this little cover. Gotta go up in here. And into that, there's a screw that goes into that hole there, but it goes on the outside of this. Like so. Alright, so those little tabs stay there. Where the cover goes down over top of that. And then we gotta kind of center it better. Alright, then these go back in. I don't think they're that hard to do. I'll show you here on this other one. I gotta straighten it yet, but turn those into the sides and you lock that down. Alright, now that it's more straight, I take one of these and they're a real fine thread and that goes in that hole. Alright, so in the front, to lock down the top, I use these screws here. These are the T20, sorry. T20 security Torx. And once that's tight, you gotta make sure you got your plastic washer behind it too. Those like to fall out. Now we're coming back up to the top here. I did not have to take all this off. I was originally thinking I'd have to remove this harness all the way down to the motor, but it was much easier just to remove the top. So this is just going to be me putting this back together. Make sure if you take anything apart though, there's a hose goes on here. Make sure that gets back on there. All the other connections look good. Alright, so that's the back side. So this guy, you can either pull the knobs off, or I found you can take this cover and lay this inside it. And then slide it down. But you gotta make sure the wire, there's a green wire in here, you gotta make sure that doesn't get pinched. Once that is slid in there and your holes are lined up, then you can put your screws in. These are the T20s again, security Torx. It's irritating. If you're going to take this apart a lot, it might be worthwhile to get yourself some regular screws to replace these with. Like a Phillips head, or I don't know, something you like. And that is the top back together. Alright, so that's like a flimsy aluminum decorative piece It makes it look commercial, but it's not really. Alright, now we're back to the original problem, which is putting a new hub in. That should be exciting. Alright, so this is the kit that comes with the one that I ordered from eBay. $108,09178, and it's supposed to be a bit of an upgrade for our units. So basically these are three pieces. You've got your base that goes in. You got to line up this one. Has teeth on it that are metal instead of plastic, which sounds like an advantage. I've seen people put some sort of epoxy on these, because even installed, there's just ever slightest amount of play there. So I think I'm going to do is some sort of epoxy as well. I think the intention is with these grooves here, it kind of tightens down, but I don't think that holds as well as people hope. I don't want to do this again, so I've installed. It really kind of sucks, and this is the metal version. I don't know how much better it's actually going to be. I don't think there's enough spline engagement because of how that shaft is designed, but we'll try it. For sure, we'll try it. Yeah, to get it tight, you run it down with a tool like this, and you run it in, then you knock her with a hammer about 1/2 to 3/4 around, get her snug. I got it just so that the surface is flush here. I think that's good enough. And I did use some blue Loctite. So next is the agitator. That little bolt in there is a pain in the butt. I tipped the whole thing upside down just to get the bolt in there. And there's a lot of corrosion inside of here, but I don't know how to clean it out of plastic. So with that sitting down, you should be able to tighten that up. Again, that's a 7/16. And I got I think that's plenty tight, I'm not sure. It should be alright. Alright, so everything's locked right now. Which means it's in spin cycle, I think. I'm not sure if that's normal or not. And I can start putting the rest of this together. This piece is next. And he goes with the screw holes lined up. That one's a bugger to get out. And don't do what I do and forget these screws that go on the sides here. They're kind of critical. Alright. Rotate. And one there. almost done. And then I can put it all back together. And then I think this part of the agitator goes on next. Alright, and then we got our little dog part. Alright, put that little bolt back in there. Alright, that should be tightened up. The top back on. This guy, I already reassembled him. It's our fabric softener dispenser. And it looks like you just snap those where the snaps go here. And away we go. So if you do replace one of these, make sure you get this nut here on top tight enough, because it's turning very freely and it was tightened. And there is, I believe, supposed to be a little tab in one of these holes, and it's gone.